In addition to being referred to as the Milwaukee Monster, the Milwaukee Cannibal, and other abhorrent nicknames, notorious American serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer left a lasting imprint that demonstrated the nation's skewed justice system. Today we'll be looking at the top 10 shocking facts about Jeffrey Dahmer. Before starting, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Number 10. Jeffrey Dahmer's brother changed his name and disappeared from public eyes. Despite the fact that his name is well known because to the Dahmer family, Jeffrey Dahmer's younger brother received little notice throughout time. Jeffrey's brother, David Dahmer, was 6 years his junior. In fact, it's said that when his younger brother was born, Jeffrey gave him his name. However, David Dahmer made the decision to alter his name and vanish from the public spotlight once Jeffrey's crimes were discovered in 1991 and he was found guilty. David reportedly holds a degree from the University of Cincinnati in Ohio and a secure job. According to reports, he is married and has at least 2 kids. David had officially changed his name, according to Lionel Dahmer, who claimed that David did not even appear at the trials in Dahmer's case. The following information on Jeffrey Dahmer and his family is among the most frightening and intriguing. Jeffrey was a peculiar person who descended into chaos as a result of a variety of problems, including parenting problems, societal problems, and legal problems. He claimed that he never intended to kill his victims and that all he wanted was for them to remain with him, unlike his parents. Christopher Scarver, a devout man who believed that God had sent him to murder the Milwaukee Monster, beat Jeffrey Dahmer to death in prison. Number 9. The one that got away from Dahmer. On July 22, 1991, Jeffrey lured a black man named Tracy Edwards from a neighboring club home by offering him money. When Edwards entered Dahmer's apartment, he saw several bottles of hydrochloric acid scattered about, as well as an odd odor. Even a shackle was placed on one of his hands by Dahmer. He made an attempt to escape the residence at that point after realizing that something was amiss with Dahmer. But Jeffrey wouldn't have it that way, so he threatened him with a knife. Dahmer apparently said to Edwards at one time that he wanted to hear Edwards' heartbeat before eating it. The 32-year-old Tracy was a mature young guy who knew how to deal with Dahmer. He started posing for photos while attempting to reassure Dahmer that he wouldn't abandon him. As a result of Dahmer's alcoholism, Edwards was able to dupe the serial killer when the opportunity presented itself. With a handcuff falling from one of his hands, Edwards successfully left the home of terror after punching Dahmer in the face. Running through the streets, he came across a police cruiser. To find the handcuffs keys, he brought the police to Dahmer's flat. Polaroid pictures of dismembered bodies were found in the drawer when one of the officers searched Dahmer's bedroom for the keys after breaking into his apartment. They swiftly arrested Dahmer after discovering his identity at that point. Tracy Edwards was later hailed as a hero for bringing Jeffrey's misdeeds to the attention of the authorities. Number 8. Jeffrey was highly neglected and ignored as a child and teenager. Although Jeffrey Dahmer was not your typical neighborhood boy, his parents' carelessness throughout the years affected his personality and mind. He was raised in a fractured environment where his parents consistently put their own needs last in favor of their careers and domestic concerns. He was an introspective child who frequently kept his ideas to himself. However, when he first became aware of his homosexuality as a teenager, he sought to talk to his father about it but was met with silence. In addition, Joyce, Jeffrey's mother, is said to have taken a number of medicines while she was carrying Jeffrey to treat her stress, depression, and other mental health problems at the time. This could have also had a role in his mental illnesses and distorted psyche. Number 7. Jeffrey Dahmer helped the police to find the bodies of his victims. Jeffrey Dahmer actually assisted the Milwaukee police in finding the bodies of his victims that he had hidden or buried after being apprehended. In reality, Dahmer admitted to killing Stephen Hicks, his first victim, despite the fact that the police were unaware of it. Dahmer claimed that after committing his first murder in 1978, he spent more than a year in a frantic condition and was terrified whenever he heard a police car. He even claimed to have kept a watch on the news in the hopes that information about Stephen Hicks' disappearance might surface at some point. But because it didn't, he was inspired to carry out more of these acts in the future. Nevertheless, it would be another 9 full years, in 1987, before Dahmer would murder his second victim. The serial murderer began killing desperate, homosexual people every other week after killing his second victim, Stephen Twomey, in a hotel room. Later, when confronted by the police, he admitted to all of his crimes and said, "For what I did, I should be dead." Number 6. Despite suffering from multiple mental disorders, Dahmer was declared legally sane for his crimes. After being apprehended in 1991, it was found that Dahmer had a number of mental disorders, including psychotic illness, borderline personality disorder, and schizotypal personality disorder. Additionally, he had splanchnophilia, a mental illness in which a person is attracted to the flesh and bones. As a result, Dahmer's lawyer and father attempted to argue for insanity in Dahmer's case by highlighting these medical breakthroughs. Lionel never wanted his son to serve time in prison, and claiming insanity in court was one option to get the murderer placed in a mental institution rather than imprisonment. They were disappointed when the judge ruled that Dahmer was legally sane and fully comprehended what he was doing to his victims. On February 17, 1992, he was ultimately given a sentence of 15 consecutive life sentences. Number 5. The police found human remains in every utensil in Dahmer's apartment. On July 22, 1991, when Jeffrey Dahmer was eventually taken into custody by the authorities, they discovered human remains in practically every appliance in his flat. Dahmer was dubbed the Milwaukee cannibal for a reason. Jeff removed the internal organs from his victims after killing and dismembering them, then he ate the flesh off of their bones. The serial murderer claimed that he consumed his victims because it gave him the impression that they were a part of himself. Following his arrest, the police examined Dahmer's home and discovered the internal organs of other people as well as the severed head of Conorak synthesumphone. In addition, they discovered numerous hydrochloric acid bottles, a sizable canister in which Dahmer had melted human flesh, and numerous skulls. Jeff painted many of the skulls to make them resemble ancient objects. Number 4. How the racism and negligence of the police contributed to Dahmer's crimes. A white man named Jeffrey Dahmer lived in late 1980s America, a time when racism and colorism were pervasive in culture. This is one of the main factors that influenced Jeffrey's crimes and murders the most. Did you know that Glenda Cleveland, a black woman who lived next door to Jeffrey Dahmer's unit in Milwaukee's Oxford Apartments, could have persuaded the police to stop at least 5 murders? Cleveland repeatedly complained to the police about hearing electrical tool noises, yelling, and unpleasant smells coming from Dahmer's residence. Conorak synthesumphone, a 14-year-old boy who Dahmer kept in a vegetative state by drilling a hole in his head, actually managed to escape from Dahmer's room when the killer was out getting booze. Cleveland, her daughter, and one of her cousins discovered Conorak outside Dahmer's apartment, naked, mumbling unrecognized words and bleeding from the head. The women reported the situation to the police right away. Conorak was sitting practically unknowingly and bleeding from the head when the police arrived. When Jeffrey quickly arrived, he quickly dealt with this situation. The day before he took the 14-year-old Conorak to his residence and drugged him, Dahmer killed Tony Hughes, whose body was found here. In addition to discovering Hughes' body, the police might have been able to spare Conorak synthesumphone, who later perished at the hands of Dahmer, had they taken Glenda's allegations seriously and looked into Dahmer. Number 3. Jeffrey's Dahmer and his social status in school. The third intriguing fact about Dahmer that is worth knowing is how he made his living while attending school. You see, during his time in school, Dahmer was a social outsider who frequently received no attention from the popular pupils. But one of Jeff's schoolmates claimed in his graphic novel about him, My Friend Dahmer, that Jeff got the school clown job for doing a Dahmer. What is that then? The Urban Dictionary states that doing a Dahmer simply refers to playing a practical joke on someone. In class, Jeffrey frequently amused his peers by imitating people with autism. The term gained notoriety after appearing in Joel Norris' 1992 book Jeffrey Dahmer. However, the significance of doing a Dahmer drastically shifted once Dahmer was found guilty of the killings and decapitations of 17 young men. The phrase has since only been connected to his horrible actions. Number 2. Jeffrey's first victim was a fantasy come true for him. According to his own admissions and the available documentation, Jeffrey Dahmer killed his first person in Ohio in his father's house. Stephen Hicks, an 18-year-old teenager who rode in Dahmer's car to hitchhike to a concert, was killed, but the murderer subsequently admitted that it was an accident. Being a loner and a homosexual man, Jeff admitted to the police that he had fantasies about young boys. In one of his fantasies, Dahmer stops for a ride from a complete stranger on the road, and they wind up having a fantastic time together. Just like his parents, he didn't want them to abandon him. Now, although things got off to a good start when Hicks agreed to go to Jeff's house, things quickly got out of hand when the hitchhiker demanded that Dahmer drop him off at his destination before it became too late. According to Jeff, the stranger refused his desire to stay longer, which led to tension between the two 18-year-olds. At some point, Dahmer seized a barbell and struck him in the head. Jeff afterwards strangled Hicks with a longer dumbbell as the young man was still having trouble with his head injury. In a fit of rage, Jeff murdered Hicks and concealed the body beneath their home, where he and his father discovered the first roadkill. Dahmer later dismembered the body, nevertheless. He also attempted to break Hicks' bones, but was unsuccessful due to the human skeleton's moist inside. He therefore baked the bones until they became brittle and broke readily. Then he dispersed the bone dust around his backyard. Jeff said that he felt like doing it to ensure that Hicks, his fictional hero, is always close by. Number 1. Jeffrey Dahmer was heavily inspired by his father. Lionel Dahmer, a gifted scientist who was born on July 29, 1936, was employed at PPG Industries in Barberton, Ohio, as a senior research chemist. Later, he rose to the position of department supervisor for analytical chemistry at the corporation. Why, you might be wondering, am I telling you all of this about Lionel Dahmer? First off, he is the father of Jeffrey Dahmer, the notorious American serial killer. Additionally, you should be aware that Lionel personally taught Jeff to write the majority of his works. Jeffrey learned how to dissect roadkill like possums, raccoons, and other dead animals from Lionel, despite the fact that he was a highly busy guy and a lousy husband to his then-wife Joyce Flint. Lionel had been working on an experiment that entailed making a hole in a frog's skull and putting various liquids into the animal's brain to observe how it would respond. The experiment's real goal was to demonstrate that an animal may maintain its life in a vegetative state even after having practically all of its brain severely injured. Another intriguing aspect about Lionel is that he admitted in his book, A Father's Story, that he once experienced violent fancies and dreams similar to Jeffrey. Lionel went on to become an author. Unlike his kid, he did not follow his instincts or use his gifts to their full potential. It is important to remember, nevertheless, that Lionel did continue to love Jeffrey and stood by him until his passing on November 28, 1994. That's a wrap for today's video. What are your thoughts on our list? Let us know in the comments section below. And make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more future updates.